Hey, welcome to Guild of the North, the Geeks of the North Guild Ball spin-off. I'm here again recording as the substitute host. I'm Steve Gagné, and I'm joined again with Mr. Guild Ball Zone, Kevin Stewart.
Hello.
We had to postpone this recording because you got hit by Nurgle.
Oh God, I was sick. I have very radio voice right now, so don't put me on around your wives and significant others, or else they might be deeply turned on by my sexy, deep voice.
And it's a good thing we're recording over Skype, so I don't get in contact with your germs. So yeah, I'm going to be safe all across Quebec. But actually, Paul and Antoine are stuck with some seasonal disease in their family as well. So everybody's sick. So far, I'm safe.
Yeah,
knocking on wood, because I know
it snowed for one day, and then everyone got sick.
Exactly. Well, my kids are not going to daycare anymore, so I'm kind of safer, because daycare is really the place when you catch all the germs around. I mean, everything, you'll get it if floating around. Daycare is there for that.
Yep. It's just like, what about if we gave you this weird disease?
Exactly. But tonight we're not here to talk about kids and disease. We're here to talk about some new content for Guild Ball. So
there's a new rat catcher. No, there's no new rat catcher.
The disease has been reworked. No, that's not true. So the game plan cards are getting a huge overhaul for season 4, I guess. Even though
the last ones came out in season 4 too.
Yeah, they were kind of at the beginning. Were they
very
at the beginning?
End of season 3?
Yeah.
They're called the season 4 cards.
Oh, okay. I thought they were called season 3.
I think they're called season 4. It doesn't matter. Whatever.
These are...
We've had them for all of season 4 at this point. And I think they came out before, because we've had them for what feels like forever. They came out a little before season 4.
So now we get a brand new set of cards.
And they definitely are not the first version of the cards.
That's for sure. There's some huge difference. Well, there's one similarity, though. It's the same spread of cards. So you still get the same from 1 to 7, and it's still 2, 7, 2, 6, and blah, 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 and the rest.
Yep.
So you kind of...
mostly 4s, but...
Yeah.
Right in the middle there. I think, they're a bit of a different set, and they're a definite iteration on the concept that they had with the first set. And I think they looked at that and went, what did people like the most? Why don't we do that, but balanced? So I think, there's a good spread this time.
Yeah, it's gonna... I feel it's gonna change the games, at least at the beginning, because you won't know what to choose and everything, and it's gonna take a couple of games to get used to the new cards and try to guess what your opponent will take. But I think
more than the last deck, there's also reasons that you would want to take lower value cards, because I think that the next biggest difference, and hopefully when people are listening to this, they've seen the cards, and we're not just assuming they've read them, because we're not going to read them here for the most part. But there's only 2 cards that have -1 on them. And there aren't that many cards that have pluses. It's mostly a deck of 0s for the influence value.
Yeah. And the biggest change from the new cards is there's a penalty to taking a 7. Because let's be honest, Seize the Initiative, getting both the dodge wasn't that bad.
Not usually.
Usually you would take it when it was favorable for you, and you got the initiative as well.
And Lone Striker was also pretty good because you just take it and score a goal, usually.
Exactly.
So it didn't matter if you were -1 tack. So, yeah, I think it's worth talking about a couple of the cards in this deck. I think the most impactful, looking at this list, are the 7s and the 1s. I think we should go through those.
Yeah, we can start with the 1 because probably everybody's gonna start with the 7. So
yeah, and I think the 1s are honestly more exciting.
Yeah. So. Well, the first one that's with no text, actually, almost no text on the card.
There's just no text on the card.
Yeah. There's the title. The title of the card, and that's it. It's give me 110%. So it's a 1 initiative value, but it's a +2 influence,
which I think is a really neat card, because it's really good if you're behind. So if you spend down your influence or your momentum and you're like, I know I'm going to go second, might as well spend this 1 and now I get 2 extra influence.
Which you can convert into momentum.
Yeah, for the next turn. For
the next round. So,
which I think is interesting. Or if you're way ahead on influence, you're like, it doesn't matter what I play. I can go first and have +2 influence, which is kind of backbreaking depending on what team you're playing.
It could help you seal the game really fast.
Yeah. So I think that's, and it's like this to me it's a super interesting design because it's like they had enough faith in themselves and their players to be like, we're just not going to put any text on this card, and people will get it and people understand why it's strong, why +2 influence is good. I mean, it doesn't take that much to realize why +2 influence is good.
No, exactly.
But at least they had the faith in saying, like, we're going to make a card that's +2 influence and no text on it.
It's kind of self-explanatory, especially with the title.
Yeah.
So it's pretty... I think that's like... I know before you weren't even tempted to take the +1, the 1 initiative value cards, because most of the time they weren't that good, but now... Like this one, I can see myself taking it. Like
I mean, you would take them, and I think the reason you would take them is because so many of the other cards were just useless.
Yeah.
And you'd just be like, well, this card doesn't work or is bad. Like the 5 initiative card that gave you -1 influence and showboating, you were like, I'm never going to play this card ever. It's so terrible. So... You know, sometimes you just end up taking a 1 because it gave you +1 influence.
You're some weren't meaningful. Something. Yeah, exactly.
They weren't strong, but they were something.
Yeah, they were.
And the other card here, I think that's, you know, we're dancing around, is pretty straightforward. It's a 1 initiative value card with 0 influence, but it gives all of your squaddies +1 tack. Which, if you haven't played with Rivet, is a very good ability. If you're ahead, it's going to help you stay ahead. If you're behind, it's going to help you get back in the game.
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't like tack 8 Colossus?
Yeah, I mean, it's just tack 7 under Rivet.
Yeah.
You could have a tack. You could be attacking with tack 8 Nomad. You could be attacking with a tack 9 Veteran Catalyst. These are
gross example.
Yeah, they're really high tack values, but like, you know, the whole Brewers team is going to be happy when now their playbooks are all 2 ahead of their attack is 2 more than their playbook.
And if you're playing Corker and you stacked up on Beer Token, I mean, it's just going to be you're going to be able to wreck face in that turn.
Yeah, you can really take advantage of the turn when you're expecting to use these really high buffs that you've kind of prepared. You know, if you're playing, I don't know, Union or something, and you're like, oh, well, Gutter would be a lot better if I was able to reliably hit Scything Blow. Well, you can start with tack 6. You don't need any assists. If you have an assist, even better.
Or if, I don't know, nobody plays Morn, but if you play Morn and Gaffer, you could get the equivalent of Tech 11 Gast.
Oh, jeez, yeah, you could get that. So there's lots of ways where, and obviously there was the card, I forget what it was called, from the last deck, which gave one model Tech +1.
Yeah.
Which is a good card, probably the best card in the deck.
But now it's all your squaddies.
Now it's all your squaddies.
It's even better.
Yeah. It's a 1, but you get the power from the 1s.
Exactly. You get rewarded for taking that one.
And I think it's worth now, so we take these 1s and we've told you how powerful they are. Looking at the 7s.
The other side of the spectrum is...
The complete other side of the spectrum.
It's the same.
They're powerful, but they both let your opponent do something.
Yes. Well, we can't talk about them because we're not going to do anything in the straight order.
Order,
so.
Who cares? Order.
Yeah. So the first one is cut out of position, which is, like we said, initiative value of 7, but it carries a -1 influence.
Yep.
And the effect on that one is both player choose one enemy model and it make you dodge it 2 inches.
Yeah, and then it goes into anything where both players play. The person with initiative goes first.
Yeah.
So if you play a 7 and you win, you dodge one of your opponent's models, then they dodge one of your models. And who knows, maybe they'll put your model behind another model, so there's no charge lane, or maybe, who knows what's going to happen. This is I feel like it's a really tempting card, because you're like, I can put that model out of cover, or I could put that model in a place where I could really take advantage of its position.
But you're dodging first, so...
And then your opponent is like, well, I'm going to take the obvious choice you had, and now you can't reach me, so sorry.
Now I reach you again.
Yeah, and now you get to go first, and the model that you really wanted to activate is no longer able to do what you wanted. And you still have to go first and try to figure out what to do. And you're at -1 influence. So it's like Seize the Initiative, except instead of moving your own model, you're moving your opponent's model.
And they do the same.
So...
And they do it after. That's what I like, because then you can react to the person that stole or got the initiative. So
right. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. And then the other one, Risky Play, is a 7 with 0 influence. And the enemy, your opponent, chooses one of their squaddies and gives it +1 tack. So we recall that the best card in the last deck was giving your own model 1 tack. Well, now you're giving your opponent the choice of a squaddie to get 1 tack. Which is really dangerous.
Exactly. Because odds are it's going to be, like the player's obvious choice we talked just a couple of seconds ago. So probably maybe Colossus or Nomad or Bet Catalyst or Cena. I mean,
but even then, you could put it on a striker.
Yeah.
Now you've got a more dangerous striker. They all typically have shorter playbooks. A TAC 4 model going to TAC 5 makes it a lot easier to hit second and third column.
Yeah.
So, you give that to Fathom. Your opponent's playing Fish, and you could have problems. Like, you could be dealing with
a charting Fathom.
Like a model right in your face, taking the ball off you right away from a very long way at an even higher tack value. And I think Risky Play is also, it's aptly named, because if you go second, if you don't win with this card, your opponent still gets to put that tack out. He's
going to punish you for that goal.
You're in trouble. if if you're close and you're like, I'm going to play a 7 and hope you don't have one. Oh, you had the 7. Uh-oh. Sure, you get to dodge models around, but they're gonna plus one tack on one of their models.
Well, hopefully you can take out that model first.
Yeah, but if you're going second, if you
won't
lose the initiative roll, that could be bad. So
that's really fun. That
this one feels like the what's it called? The one from the last deck that gave singled out.
Yep. Grudge match.
Yes, very similar concept where if you don't play it at the right time, you could be very, very in trouble.
Yeah, because you don't want to give +1 tack to Spice.
Yeah, you don't want to give +1 tack to quite a lot of models, and then go second. That's not great. So is there anything else that sticks out to you? Like these are the 7s and the 1s, which I think are, for initiative value, they're going to be the most impactful cards. And I think that they've done a good job making
because
their initiative value kind of impactful in the game. But looking at the rest of the deck, what else sticks out to you?
Well, there's some that are really more situational, depending on your team. I like the card Cool Ed. It's 3 influence, initiative value, 0 influence. But when the first momentous action you do, you don't spend the influence. So I could see that with either Falconers or Hunters, where you put Last Light and you have it for free, basically. So it could save you 2 momentum.
Right. Or, you get to do that blessing before you activate or something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You can't bless yourself. Can you bless yourself?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can bless yourself now.
They changed that. I haven't played those teams in a while, so but Theron being able to bless himself and put out a shot or something, right? I don't know why you would do that, but you could.
You could use it to do encourage or rest.
Yeah, so
without spending it. So,
or if you're playing Fet Rage or something and you want to put up Bloody Coin before you attack, let you do that. There's lots of reasons why it would be good.
Yeah, I think there's lots of teams who are going to make good use of that. Brewers or like that.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
And also, like you talk about Navs before with Phantom. I mean, so if you manage to win the initiative with that card, so you don't have that momentum at the beginning of the turn, but all of a sudden now you can make that 4-inch dodge. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And or if you go second, now you have 2.
Exactly.
You basically have 2 momentum to spend. You can counterattack. And then you can just stand a model up, right? You can use that influence or that momentum to keep your guys safe and then still spend it. So you can't spend it on a goal or a snapshot.
But you could spend it on a counterattack, though.
You could spend it on a counterattack. So I think it's pretty good. I think one that stands out to me is Punching Bag. It's a 4. It's the other one that has -1 inf, and it gives one of your squaddies Tough Hide. And I think that it's pretty straightforward what it does, and why it's strong. There are a lot of models in this game that should not have Tough Hide.
Well, any Def 5 striker that you want to protect or put that you don't want him to die after scoring could be really good, because we all know, like, if you score, most of the time you'll be exchanging 4 points for 2 points, because that striker is going to die, because obviously you don't want to have
pretty good,
because you don't want that snapshot opportunity.
Right.
So giving that model Tough Hide could really change the plan for your opponent, because he's going to need to, like, even they're low health. Let's be honest, like they're they're 12, 14 health max, and usually they're 5-0 or 4-0.
Yeah.
So putting Tough Hide on those models could really help you stay alive longer and give you the opportunity to heal them throughout the turn. So they might still be alive, so they're going to be a threat in the next turn, where usually they would have just die casually.
Yeah. You could also have a model like, let's say, Granite, who's already pretty annoying to deal with. Now you're definitely not going to kill her. You know, to the point where it's like, do you even attack this model? Well, that could be beneficial.
Or Ghast.
Or Fisher. Like a 2-3 with Tough Hide. What kind of model would ever have rules like that? Brick.
Or Masters in the Blacksmith as well could really use that.
The
non-captain.
Even apprentices, right?
Yeah.
Where, you're like, I went and I did something with Veteran Cinder. She's a 12. She's a 4-1, but she's a 12. Not too hard to take out. Well, a little harder to take out when she's got Tough Hide.
Or 4-2 with Tough Hide in Sentinel.
Yeah.
You don't want to hit that model, so it's a good...
Not usually.
It's a good insurance policy, I guess.
Yeah, so there's lots of reasons why having a pretty simple ability like Tough Hide...
and that's why there's -1 influence, because it's
really
good.
It's the only other -1, and it's like, all right, I get it. I get it.
Well, other are kind of interesting in the 4, Pass Out the Orange Slice.
That's probably the best name.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool because all your models recover 2 HP. So if you're playing against rats or alchemists or condition heavy teams, you're gonna be if you have that card, you can save a bit on your momentum and not clear the condition as you go through the turn, and maybe try to save, get the first turn and get to health on everybody.
Yeah, and it's also pretty good if you have models that just came back on the pitch. Although I think this happens before they come back on the pitch. So.
Yeah, the cards are before they...
Yeah, so never mind. But, you never want to spend... You never want to be like, I'm going to heal my mascot who's taken 3 damage.
Yeah, exactly. So
you're like, this feels inefficient, but when you get...
And there's no range, so it's everybody on the pitch.
Yeah, so that's a good one. I think that maybe the most technically demanding and has the highest potential to... kind of for you to f*** it up is Sidestep, which is the most complicated card, I would say. So you, the player who when you're doing the cards, obviously they happen in initiative order, but you choose between 1 and 3 friendly models. They get to dodge 2 inches, and then your opponent chooses the same number of their own models and dodges those models. So in theory, you could have 6 models moving in your card phase, which is probably the best argument for why cards should be on the clock.
Well, cards effects are on clock, so
the effects are on the clock.
So that's pretty good because
this card would not be good if it was not.
Because we all know players who are gonna take 5 to 7 minutes to dodge 3 model because you have your plan already. Yeah. You dodge quickly, 2 minutes or 1 minute, and you're done. Talk, and the other one, okay, should I dodge here or there? So it could be a tactical advantage if you're facing that kind of opponent. Just use that card to grind their clock.
Yep. And also, but I think that there's so much potential for this card to just be used poorly. Where you're like, I'm going to dodge 3 of my models, and your opponent is going to be like, sure, now I'm going to dodge 3 of my models, and it's going to be like, uh-oh. Especially, again, if you go second. Yes, they get to dodge their models first, and then you get to dodge your models, but... they still get to go first with this advantage of having these models moved, right?
Yeah, I think this one is kind of the card that could have the biggest impact on a turn.
Yeah.
Because 3 models, if you decide to go all 3, it's pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get out of the weird situation, or let's say you're missing that 2-inch to score with your model, so you can use that for that. And there's so much
and this card is one of those cards that's kind of in a theme of making it harder for your models to get jailed. There's a bunch of cards here that either make it not so bad if your model gets taken out, or kind of incentivizes your opponent to take those models out quickly, or just lets you get them out of a jam.
Yeah. Kind of if they want to remove standoff.
Yeah, which feels like what they want to do.
Yeah.
And I think there's some cards here that make it good. So like if you're like, aha, I jailed this model, and then you're like, well, now they've got tough hide, and you're like, oh no, I might not be able to kill them with what I planned to do. And it's always good to force your opponent to change their plans.
Well, and you have you have both of the 2 initiative value cards are kind of to help you if you get jail.
Right.
Because one is never say die. When the friendly model is taken out, you gain 2 momentum, so it's going to help you do more afterwards. And the other one is raw enthusiasm, which gives you the same ability as champ, which is put me back in. So if it dies during it before it activate, it can come back in its activation.
Right. So you can feel totally safe putting influence on that model, then just letting it wait until last.
Yeah, exactly. So
you're just like, whatever. Like, if you want to kill it this turn, you're going to need to do it, and I'm going to need to get my activation. Which for some models that are like strikers, that's pretty good. Now,
it's you don't want to get squatty only though.
Yes, so it's like it's not going to work on Midas
exactly,
but it would work on Vitriol, and it would work on Spade
or Cami.
Any of these models, yeah. You know, now Spade is not the fastest model in the world, so it's not like you're just going to be in the same spot. Like if it's Cami, and you're just like, by the way, I get to jog 7 inches. Like I'm already halfway up the field for free. But,
or,
you know,
Edge could be an interesting one as well, because there's often some fast terrain on the side and things like that. So she's going to come back, and she's going to be almost relevant when she comes back down on that turn.
Yeah, well, relevant in the way that she's
going to try to
kind of
score.
Sort of relevant at best. So, you know, not the biggest fan of Edge.
Oh, okay. I like her. I tried her a couple of times, and she's nice.
She's okay.
She's fun.
Yeah, I think she's. There's a lot of potential, but it's one of those things that things need to kind of go your way to make Edge work.
Yeah.
Maybe having an ability to, you know, her 4-0 becomes less of a liability if you can just come back on the pitch.
Or give her tough hide.
Yeah, or give her tough hide. I'd usually want to put tough hide in a model that is going to go early in the turn and then stand around.
Yeah.
Those models that are like 3-1 or 4-1, they kind of end up, they kind of fight it out, and then they're like, okay, please don't kill me. You know, or if you like never want Benediction to get hit, you're gonna be like, well, you're never gonna attack this model because that seems like a really bad idea. Benediction is just not gonna die if you give him tough hide.
That's for sure. With especially if he has brace.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just like, I'm just gonna stand here.
I'm not moving.
Yeah, you really can't do anything about me, and there's no reason to ever punch him. A tough hide, might help. Yeah, there's a lot of things that it works well on. Which is why I look at that and I think that might be one of the better cards in the deck, even though it's so straightforward.
Well, sometimes the simplest thing are the best thing.
Yeah, like the last one where it was like, give one of your models +1 tack. And it was a 5 for some reason. There's no downside to that card ever, basically. So.
And also, what's kind of nice is if you add the Muse token, lots of them are still usable. Because the +1 tack, you can still put it on one of your squaddy as a reminder, but the -1 tack is still there with one of the cards.
Yeah, Lockdown, which I'm pretty sure that's the name of one of Mule's abilities. Seems like
lock them down.
Lockdown. Yeah, that's Mule's ability. It gives them -4/-4 move and -1 tack. So. Maybe you could have come up with a different name for that card, but I mean.
But the card, it's lock them down.
Oh, is it lock them down?
Yeah,
I just wrote it down wrong.
No, and Mule's ability is lock
down. Yeah.
So it's a less hurtful version of Mule.
Yeah, but it's still like come up with a slightly better name.
And you get to choose who gets affected by that.
Yeah,
because it's a lower.
Yeah, I believe that's also a squatty, though.
Yes, it's a squatty.
Right. So.
Yeah, there's not much card that affect captains. Most of them are the effects are on squatties.
Yeah, that's true. I think one that I think people are going to buzz a bit about is aggressive defense, which I don't think. Is just squatties. I'm pretty sure is only.
It's friendly models gain poise while within the enemy's half of the pitch.
Right. So if you're playing aggressively, and now all of a sudden all your guys get poised. If you're playing like an Alchemist Striker team, that could be pretty good. To be like most of my models are on your side of the pitch,
or miners can be really fast in the other half of the pitch, or engineer for that extent.
Engineers want to be somewhere in the middle, right? So that's the danger of engineers, is you're going to kind of sit on one side or the other of the center line with most of your models.
Yeah, but it's within. It's not completely within. So as long as you touch the center line, you're fine.
Yeah.
So
a little bit of pre-planning required to make that good. But I think it's still a good card, obviously. Which is interesting that it gives you 1 influence. That's a pretty strong ability. But
it's more situational and depending on your type of gameplay.
Also, that one feels like a card. So, like, if I were a game designer, and I wanted players to do specific actions in my game, some things you'll be like, so here's a good example. In Guild Ball, they don't want you sticking the ball behind your goal line. So if you put the ball behind the goal line, you get a momentum penalty, right?
Yeah.
So that's one way that you can, as a game designer, put in a restriction that prevents people from doing something you don't want them to do. If you don't want something to do something, you add a penalty. If you do want someone to do something, you give them a benefit. This card reads a little to me like they want players to be a little more aggressive. So you give them a pretty decent card. It's a 3, but I mean, that's not the end of the world.
No.
It's still reasonable.
Yeah.
If it's close, you might win. If you don't, all your models in your opponent's half might have poised, and you still get 1 influence from it. So when I look at that card, I see something that is, you'll talk, sometimes if you're, I don't know how into Magic or anything you are, but you'll look at some cards and you'll be like, this card is pushed, and the designers have clearly taken this card and designed it in a way that pushes the power level a little bit and pushes people to do certain things and certain behaviors. If you do it on purpose, it's good. If you do it by accident, it's bad. Like the recent State of Magic. But if you do it on purpose, it's giving your players some incentive to
move along,
do a certain behavior, and in this case, it's be proactive, beat your opponent's half. And I think that's something that Steamforged wants, obviously, and they want to promote that kind of play style. I don't know if I'm not going to say that the way that when Miners came out, Miners were obviously too good.
Yeah.
But they were also supposed to be up there being proactive about their gameplay. They were just a little too good at fighting, for the most part. You look at Alchemists, and yes, Veteran Catalyst is pretty good, but Veteran Catalyst being good kind of gives you incentive to go forward with your strikers and, be aggressive, get in your opponent's face. So you look at those teams that have been pretty reasonable lately, and you think, maybe there's something behind this kind of idea that they're pushing a little bit of a different playstyle, or trying to, with some of these cards.
Yeah, not to some cards are there to try to break the brewer's bunker as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and there's some that, like, there's a card that gives weak point. That's pretty straightforward, but that's a little safer version of giving singled out, for instance. Giving something singled out could be dangerous, could be, it depends on the team. You put weak point on an apprentice that's under Sentinel, and all of a sudden that apprentice,
it's back to
give
normal.
them a 1-inch push, and now they're just ready for the kill. Whereas before you'd push them, and then you still have to fight through their armor. Now you at least get to get right into it.
The other thing I find funny, it's that both 5 initiative value cards are affected by, or affecting movement, or affected by terrain.
Yeah.
So one gives you gliding for free during a turn, and the other one is you choose a piece of rough terrain, and that it counts as fast instead of rough for the turn.
And we clarified this today. Actually, was spoiler alert: we're recording this after the first round has been publicly shown, so some people have seen some of these cards. We asked the rules lawyers, "Hey, does this let you turn a forest into fast terrain?"
I was wondering that.
And the answer is yes. The forest stays as forest, so it still has all the forest rules of blocking line of sight and making it harder to kick and all that stuff. But instead of it having the rough ground penalty, it gives you the fast ground bonus. So
that's pretty nice.
Yeah. It makes for an interesting piece of terrain, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
It can't affect your forest that Theron put down because it happens at the beginning of the turn, but if you get a forest on there, that's a good possible target.
Especially since forests are often bigger than rough ground on pitch.
Yeah, usually.
So.
And I think that this is also an interesting card because I think having a card in the deck that specifically mentions a certain kind of terrain but also affects forests means, I think, that when you see tables get set up now, there's probably going to be one or the other. Because otherwise this card does nothing.
Well, I know locally when we run event and everything, we use the random generator on Longshank, and
of course,
there's always forests on like probably around between a third or a quarter of the table. So so that's not too bad.
Yeah, so I think that you're definitely going to see forests and rough ground on pretty much every table, I would say.
Yeah.
Because I think people would... Because otherwise you just throw this card away. And it does nothing. So, that's... Yeah. Because at least with gliding, like, gliding can affect things like blast earth. It can affect things like broken earth, the aura.
Or casket is foul odor as well.
Yeah. So, gliding is usually pretty good. It's especially good when you can do it like with True Path, with Ebb or what's his face, Plowman. Letting you just do it for free within an aura. This is just free for everyone on the whole table. Well, all your models. So it's kind of like cool. Like pretend most terrain doesn't exist for a turn.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Again, other effects to encourage player to move without penalty and without spending that momentum.
Yeah, and I think that adding to this, there's Pick Up the Pace, which is a 6/0 card, which both players choose a model who gets +2/+2 move. A squatty. It's another card that breaks standoffs and kind of incentivizes you to.
Well, it's gonna. Go ahead.
Sorry, just move a model a long way.
Well, yeah, because it encourages you to score with that model and take advantage of that +2 move.
Or even if you just want to fight something, like your model now fights something that's a little farther away. And if you're going first, then that might be really good for you. It could be really strong. Yeah,
you can. And with Mark Target, you can reach somebody from really far away.
It's true. So, does it necessarily break standoffs? Maybe not, but it does give you incentives to start the process of the engagement, right? Because that's the big thing, is like, when you're doing these standoffs, it's like you don't want to engage, you don't want to engage, you don't want to engage. Well, now you've given this kind of really good card for engagement, which kind of by necessity means to use it effectively, you need to engage.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully it helps create some more dynamic games. But for sure it's going to be fun because it's brand new cards, so it's going to be a good change of pace.
Yeah, I think it's going to make the beginning of the game a little slower, like, to be honest.
Yeah, for the first couple of weeks, yeah.
Because until people really get an understanding. And I think, by the end of this, if I were to get any random set of plot cards right now, I have a pretty good idea of what my opponent's numbers are going to roughly look like. I kind of am mostly looking at the numbers, because most of the effects I'm like, whatever. Like, most of these effects are either interchangeable or bad. You're probably avoiding certain cards in the deck entirely because they're bad. This one, you're like, oh, okay, what combinations can I have that will help me if the game goes this way or this way? And, trying to think of that balance of because the abilities are so reasonable, it feels like you're like, oh, okay, I don't feel like I'm being punished for taking this card. And I kind of can figure out, like, these two cards complement each other well. If I'm losing, this is a good one to help me. If I'm winning, this is a good one, etc.
Yeah, I like the fact that you get rewarded to take lower cards. And the thing that's going to be funny about, well, not funny, but about card selection is, since, like, a card that has lots of effect, like Sidestep, is a 4, and 4 is the most common card in the deck, so it's going to be harder to know if your opponent has it or not. As like if you have 1/7, it's easier to. You probably assume that your opponent has either the other 7 or it's in the discard in the drop pile.
Right.
So it's easier to guess with those cards, but the 4, since there's 4 of them, it's going to be harder to gauge which one they have. So you don't know if you don't have sidestep. It's hard to know if they have it or not.
Right. And like there are cards in here that I think are situational, like Play to the Crowd, which gives you the -1 MP to take snapshots. No more 1-die snapshots with this card. That's a decent one, but again, it needs some setup. And if you're not already set up to do it, it's pretty obvious what you're going to try and do. I don't think that's not going to be a card you always take, but there's not a lot of penalty for taking it. It's a 6. There's no minus on it. If you don't use the ability, it's still a 6. You still might go first.
And you won't lose influence.
You don't lose any influence for it. So. I think the most situational is Form a Wall, which gives your model goal defense, but it gives all of your models goal defense. So it's a lot harder to turn it off when it's not just one model, but your goalie standing back there. Maybe it's your mascot, which you're just standing back there doing nothing with.
It's there. It's gonna come.
Maybe it's a model that just came on the pitch, right? Standing next to your goal because it just hasn't activated yet. Goal defense gives you +1 TN. It's not nothing. It does lower their chances of hitting that goal. So, yeah, it's just, there's not a bad I would say if there's a number that I would call the weakest, just because something has to be, the 5s are probably the weakest.
Well, I find that the 5s are the less, are the cards that gonna have less influence on the game.
Right, because they're pretty situational.
Yeah.
And the one that makes rough ground into fast ground, that affects both players. So anything that affects both players can end up blowing up in your face.
If you take it on the wrong turn.
If you take it at the wrong time, and if you
timing is
turn the wrong piece of terrain into fast ground, and then oops, my opponent moved through it.
I didn't see that.
I don't know if this card is optional. So if you're sitting there with a pack of cards and you're like, I have a 5 that I kept because it's a 5, and it's actually not good for me to turn that into rough ground into fast ground, but I'll go first if I take this card. That could be a downside, because I don't think it's optional.
Well, it says choose a piece of rough ground on the pitch. The chosen piece instead counts as rough ground. It doesn't say may.
Yeah, so
like sidestep is may choose 1, 2, 3 friendly models. So you're
is it even may? So you could choose 0
for sidestep? Yeah.
Oh, so if you lose initiative and go second,
yeah, you don't have to.
Maybe
dodge.
You're like, I don't want to give you any models. Dodge it, because that might be bad. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. So much like by raw, I would say you have to do it.
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having an effect that you have to do, even if it doesn't benefit you. I think that just makes it a slightly more skill testing card, and you need to be really careful about. I think there's a lot of cards that you have to be really careful about using.
Yeah.
Which was kind of the case before, but really it was only Grudge Match that was the real problem. But now there's a few cards in here that could blow up in your face if you don't plan it out. Which is good and bad, right? Because you don't, that people often talk about, how does this affect new players? Well, some of these cards are going to give new players a bad time. They're going to make a decision that seems smart but isn't. or they're going to make a decision that is not obvious. And I think it's going to get veteran players too playing against the really good players who are going to understand this card that was played against me is actually, I can use this to my benefit. You know, there are a lot of players who didn't mind seeing Seize the Initiative because the better players will make better use of it. And they're like, cool, I get to go second, and you have to choose what model you're dodging first. I have all the information when I make my dodge.
Exactly.
So if you don't make the right dodge, I'm going to do... This could end up in a more beneficial board position for me.
Even though you had the initiative.
Even though they have the initiative, and even though they got to choose to play that card. I think the thing about Seize the Initiative is it was also so good when you went second and knew you were going to go second, or chose to go second. I win the initiative, I choose to go second. You make your dodge. You weren't planning to go second. Now I get to make my dodge, and the board position is even better for me. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of places where you want to go second, but there are some. It gives you last activation.
And now, I think that's covering all the cards what we found more impactful in our thoughts. But I want to know, like, we've been talking about the new hotness, but is there any card from the previous deck that you're gonna miss?
Is there any cards for the previous deck that you're gonna miss? Let me look at those cards. Because off the top of my head,
yeah, we didn't prepare for this. I caught you a bit off guard.
Got me sleeping. Obviously, I think the most obvious answer is the plus tack one, whose name I can't remember, as I frantically look through these to be like, what's that card called?
Go for the knee.
Go for the knees. Am I going to miss that? Maybe that's the wrong way of putting it. Miss is a strong word. I'll sort of miss Seize the Initiative. I thought it was a good card. I thought it was interesting. And I thought, if every card just did a sort of Seize the Initiative-like effect, that could actually be an interesting way to play the game. The one card, what's it called? Man, these are just not in order here. I thought that things like fullback and wingbacks were A, confusing, but B, just being a little more influence efficient it's fine, but it's not exciting.
Well, I'm gonna miss fullback because it was one I like, for especially like when you have big low influence model like Gast or Cena or Vet Catalyst or Colossus.
Yeah.
Well, Colossus in minors.
Colossus half the time, yeah. Because in engineers he's gonna charge.
Yeah, he's gonna charge for free, but in minors, like I liked it because it helps you with managing your influence and giving you a bit of a hedge on that, and try to,
or even some of your strikers that are coming in from the wings.
Exactly, or just for a player that's coming back and now he's even more relevant because you can allocate 4 influence and then he gets full allocation because he can charge for just one. So that's the one I'm kind of gonna miss from the previous deck.
I think the one I'm gonna miss the most, all things being equal, is Back in the Game. The card that if you got taken out, you could move your influence. I think that it's good for saving, being aggressive with your influence placement. You can put it on a model that you think is going to die, forcing them to take that model out. Because if they don't, then the model gets activated. Great, perfect, wonderful. You put it on a model and you're like, fine. You took a model out that you were going to take out anyway. No harm, no foul. But if you didn't take that model out, it would get to have a full activation and do something interesting. I think this is the card that had the most kind of unique potential. Like, gutter scything blowed and killed my own model, and then gets to keep going because I took that extra influence and just put it back on myself.
That's pretty nasty.
There are things you can do with that card that are kind of just, they're edge cases, but they're interesting.
Or Vetsinder charging and sighting blows your own model.
Yeah, exactly. Oops.
Oh,
I killed my own model.
That's okay. I get 2 more influence back and can do 4 attacks.
Yep.
5 if you kill another model. Because
Yep. So, there's a lot of, obviously those are kind of edge case scenarios where
Magical Christmas Land.
Magical Christmas Land. Especially if you hit your own model that blows up and, somehow you've caused, Flask to explode on their whole team, and it's like, oops, how did that happen? Look at all this damage that I just did.
Well, you can't anymore kill your own mascot, though. Well, unless you get a...
you can't. You can with Sighting Blow, exactly
with Sighting Blows or things
but
like that.
But you can't do it in Alchemist easily.
Yeah.
You can't.
Like previously, you
ground
could.
Pound. You can't ground pound.
Oh, right. That's the only one.
Ground pound lots of your own models to death if you wanted, pretty easily, to be honest. And so, I think that one's probably the most interesting card in my opinion. So, yeah. Will I miss that? Yes. Will I miss when my opponent plays Grudge Match at the wrong time? Yes, I will miss that. When it's like, you could have killed that model without Singled Out, and now your model's dead, when it wouldn't have been. So thanks for that.
So, but I'm quite happy with the new deck, and I'm eager to test it out as well.
I think most people are going to be pretty happy. I think people are pretty ready for a change, to be honest. I think the amount of time we had the last deck of cards was too much.
Hopefully these change on a more yearly base.
Yeah, I think if they did them once a year,
could be nice.
And I know with game design, I work in games. It's not like, oh man, this shouldn't be hard to do. They can be a little hard to design things.
Yeah.
That being said, it's something that you can get done. It's something that you can aim for. That shouldn't take too much developer time.
But from a company points, though, like it's time invested that doesn't put in you any new income source in the game or anything, but it can.
They're selling these. You can buy these.
Yeah, you can buy these, but at the same time, it can encourage some player to come back to the game and maybe try a new guild at the same time they're coming back and stuff like that. So
it's just like a refreshing little thing. Yes, there is some investment to do it, but I think that they've invested a lot. Like season 4.2, which should have been called season 5, but whatever. You put in those humongous balance patches. Takes way more effort than these cards ever would.
Yeah.
Because you just need to run games with these. You just need to see, run turns, look at hands, generate a bunch of stuff, talk through them. Have playtesters go through some games with these cards. They're going to find out if something is super broken pretty quickly. If something doesn't feel right. The first deck of cards, people didn't know exactly how game plans would feel. Like, game plans are kind of a evolution from the plots, but they're also an evolution from the guild identities cards they did.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ideas that they kind of tried to explore all at the same time, and people I think we all most people, I'm not going to speak for everyone, most people really liked the cards when they came out. They were different, they were fresh.
Yeah, exactly.
They had different effects, but I think that I don't want to say got solved completely, but they kind of, people figured them out fairly quickly, to the point where you could get some pretty bad hands pretty easily.
And you always knew which card to discard at one point. Like it was
pretty much.
It didn't take that long to know. Like, oh, you saw your card. Well, this one I'm not taking for sure, and you almost never took it.
Yeah, and the other problem was if you had difficulty choosing which card to discard, one of two things was true. Either your hand was very bad and you were pretty screwed, or your hand was very good and your opponent was pretty screwed. Because otherwise you just knew which cards to drop. So I think these ones are going to be a lot less solved, because even the cards that feel situational, I don't want to say weak, but that feel situational, the most situational cards are like the 5s and the 6s. So it's like, those are the ones you want to keep because they're 5s and 6s. Whereas you want to keep the really strong abilities on the 3s and 4s.
Or the 1s.
Or 1s. And so, I don't know how this is going to affect the momentum race. Because, are people going to be more willing to spend down because the effects are strong? Are people going to be thinking, because the effects of the low cards are strong, I don't need a huge influence advantage, because people might be incentivized to play those cards even if they're not going to win initiative with them? Who knows, right? Or will people be aiming to play all the low cards, so trying to build really high pools so they get to go first and have the
exactly, do a double double tap.
So
like have the last activation and try to use the effect from the low cards to try to seize the next turn, and
right, and you get to go first. You get to go first and have all your squaddies get +1 attack. That's pretty backbreaking.
That's pretty. I'm not looking for that for sure.
Yeah. Or if you get to go first and have you've scored a goal maybe turn 1, and now you've got a 16 influence Alchemist team. Well, most Alchemist lineups you can only put 17 out. You're playing. If you're playing Midas, let's say you're playing Midas, Vitriol, Vetcat, Cammy, and Crucible, right? I mean, that's a pretty fragile lineup, and then a mascot. But you're talking about, to fill those models out, Catalyst and Vitriol are 3s.
Yeah.
Midas is 6. There's 12. Now you can have, Crucible can get 3, and you still have 1 for your other player, which is like, yikes. It's a lot of influence to spend on turn 2 when your team is so influence efficient.
Or 17 influence farmers.
I mean, farmers can have a ton of influence.
Yeah,
you're playing with a Grange list, and Grange gives out Constitution, but if you get to put out Constitution and have a model that's maybe not in that Constitution bubble. Constitution's a bubble now, right? Yep. I'm not totally being
no, it's
insane.
No, it's bubble.
But, yeah, the small one though, it's 4 inches. But if you have a card that's like, oh, by the way, that model that's not in the Constitution bubble is actually also tough hide. It's going to be hard to chew through, those giant health pools that team has. You're playing Plowman. You're like, good luck getting through a model that has 20 boxes and tough hide. Like, okay.
You're going to grind a lot for that.
Even a model like Windle, put tough hide on Windle, it's like, oh my god. 22 boxes with tough hide is like kind of a nightmare.
And you don't generate momentum.
And you don't generate momentum, so it's like you're just grinding through this model that might just not die. With something like Morn, You know.
Yeah.
Let's say I've got Casket and I've got Ghast. Well, you can't kill either of them because of Grave Candle. And Grave Candle is extra good on a model that has Tough Hide because it comes back to life with Tough Hide. Like, it still has Tough Hide when you use Grave Handle.
Yeah. Because it's going to be until the end of the turn.
You put Grave Candle on Ghast and it's like, I'm probably going to get to hit you with this Malice Ghast. You're going to have to spend extra because of fear, and then Rising Anger is going to kick off, and also
you won't do as much damage.
And also you're not going to do as much damage, and even if you do kill that model,
I'm coming back to 12-ish.
He's coming back. And if you attack him in the first place, maybe he just double pushes you away. So, you know,
it's going to be annoying.
And you know, pairing him up with Casket, who's already a model you don't really want to try and kill through Grave Candle, because good luck with Reanimate Tough Hide, right?
Like, he's not going anywhere.
No. So now you've got two models that kind of have Tough Hide and just really don't want to die. It's like, how are you going to chew through that? So I think they're, you know, yeah, it's only one turn, but they're board states that are just going to be really... There's going to be turns that people have that it's going to be like, there are some problems I have to deal with. And I think the most exciting part is they're new problems. These are problems that we haven't seen before.
We're going to generate new problems.
Which is good, right? Because that's what the game is about, right? You want to figure out these problems and solve the new problems and have new looks to see. And, you know, if there was one card that I kind of wish was in here, which maybe is a good question for you, I'll ask you that first. If you had one card, it doesn't need to be balanced, but let's just say one ability, we could figure out a number for it, but one ability that you wish a card gave, what do you think, what would that ability be for you?
The one ability as a card, I think, if we're talking about like moving things around and helping,
whatever you want.
I'm just building up to my answer. Yeah. So like what we've talked, like trying to not have a stale game and everything, I would give something like the new Benediction ability or Big Feet for Big Man.
Yeah,
like that's something like that, like one free pass. So that's one of the ability that could be put into a card.
Yeah, I looking at this, I think of a couple. I think the most broken one, I don't think this should be a card ever, would be Extended Reach. It's clearly the most broken option. You should not have that card. That would be way too good. But thinking about Mallet, there's a couple. The other ability as a Mallet card would be super interesting. Football Legend. That would be a super interesting ability to hand out to a squaddy. Forceful Blow, the ability to charge and push and do damage, would be super interesting. Putting Forceful Blow on a striker, probably too good, but you know, you take a tackle and then you do a 2-inch push and 2 damage. It's like, okay. That might be too good, but you know, I think Football Legend is a really interesting one. My original thought before I asked this was Close Control, but then I'm like, that's too reactive and that's too boring and that's too standoffish. Yeah. But I think my real answer is Football Legend, because it's really just a proactive football card. You know, put Football Legend on Veteran Catalyst or whatever, right? Like, just be like, yeah, you've got a billion rules already, so...
What's one more rule on him?
Put Football Legend on Casket. Be like, I'm just going to stand here, and then everyone on my team gets to kick the ball around, and you can't really do anything about it. So,
yeah, that's interesting. So, what's interesting though is we didn't talk about that beforehand, and we both choose something that to move the game faster and go for more scoring.
I think it's because when you think about it in the spirit of the cards, a lot of these cards have to do with, I mean, anything with tack, it really has to do with fighting. You can use it to tackle the ball, but usually tack is not, most good strikers have it on 1 anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not the biggest deal.
Yeah, and mostly the attack is going to be on a beater to try to beat more. Let's be honest.
It's not as important on the first attack, because if you want to increase your attack there, you just charge. It's going to be on the models that want to attack 3-4 times in a turn.
Yeah.
So yeah, the ability to not necessarily speed up the cards, or speed up the game, but kind of
move things around
and just be a little janky and weird. Because good feet for a big man is the jankiest ability in the game. It has the most abusable. You know how abusable it is, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So for the listeners that don't, if you stand behind a wall and make it so, if you stand behind a wall, the scatter doesn't matter, right? So, because the scatter's it's basically never going to be able to go over that obstacle. So if you kick it over an obstacle, it's probably going to end up back on Scourge. Well, it costs you nothing to make that kick. If you stand behind a barrier, you don't need line of sight. Maybe it does take a 6. Maybe you're kicking it into a model that has two melee zones on it. But you have 1 die, and it needs a 6. You're standing behind that wall, you get to pick that ball right back up. So you just kick it to a model that's surrounded by people, and then they dodge away.
Exactly.
And it's like this most ridiculous thing in the game, in my opinion, because you can sit there and just roll dice until you're successful, which is very silly, and probably the silliest. We want to talk about fluff matching to rules. It's the silliest thing in the game, because you're it's this big plague-bound guy kicking the ball at the wall over and over again until it finally goes where it's supposed to go. And it costs nothing to do that.
But you're wasting clock, I guess.
That's all you're wasting. That's the only resource you're wasting. At some point you can just say, look, this is going to succeed. I'm just going to keep rolling dice till it succeeds.
Exactly.
You basically have an infinity dice kick. So, just it's really silly. It's a very silly ability. Probably unintended, but you know what? Don't change that. It's too good. It's too dumb to change.
Well, they might change it. I mean, they didn't. And the next FAQ, who knows? Change it for once per turn or something like that.
No, don't do that.
Well, they might, though.
They might, but they won't.
We'll see about that.
We'll see.
There's bound to be a FAQ as well, soon enough. I mean, it's been a while since we had a FAQ, so...
Yeah.
So, maybe they'll wait.
But to be fair, that's not a thing you could put in the FAQ. That's an errata.
Right.
So you'd have to do it in an errata pass. You can't... it doesn't matter how many times you ask the question. The answer is still, you can do it as many times as you want until they change the rules. FAQ is not the place to change rules, in my opinion.
So I think that's it for tonight. We covered all covered the cards.
I think we actually covered all the cards.
I think so. Yeah, well, we didn't want to cover them all, but we managed to. We ended up doing it all.
Yeah. It's better than just reading down the list, right?
And it was in a weird and no structured order, so it's going to be different from the rest of the podcasts that are all going to be out today.
You know what's going to happen? They're all going to have been everyone's just going to read down the list, so we're just going to have a conversation. And you know what? Let's start with the ones, because everyone else is going to start with the sevens. And it's going to be cool. Everyone did the same thing.
We'll see about that. So thanks for being on the show, Kevin. And
no problem. Anytime.
To talk to you soon, and we can do maybe another show in a couple of weeks to talk about our hands-on experience with the new cards.
You should see my schedule for the next couple of weeks. I am not going to have any time to play Guild Ball.
Well, maybe a year review or something like that. We'll see about that.
It's an interesting year in review. I think this has been... You know what? I think a year in review for Season 4, or not even, but Season 4.1, the things that have come out this year. Spoiler, there's been several times the game has been totally broken this calendar year. So
it's been interesting.
It's been a lot. It's been a lot.
So have a nice evening, and we'll talk later.
All right, have a good one.
Bye, geeks.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Geeks of the North. If you want to contact us, you can email us at geeksofthenorth@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/geeksofthenorth, or follow us on Twitter at Geeks of the North. You can follow me, Paul, at PRFilio, Antoine at Eltonio Berg, Steve at B_Steve, and if you really feel the need, I guess you can follow Yom. He's at Yomasta. Breaks and outro music by Ladrave. You can listen to them at ladrave.bandcamp.com. See you next time, geeks.